Well, happy Easter, Rose City.
Happy Easter, Clare!
Guess who's back? Jesus! Thank you. I was really excited to make that joke, so I'm glad you guys came along with me. Yes, I really wanted to be here for Easter with you. So when I was planning my sabbatical time, I wanted to make sure that I was gone before or after, but I could not miss this day with you. Though when I was planning it out, I didn't really think about like my reappearance coinciding with our Lord and Savior's, because I'm not trying to steal his thunder or anything. But while I was on sabbatical, I joked that this Easter sermon better be the best one I have ever preached, because I've had a whole 2.5 months to work on it. So if it's not, don't tell me. And to be honest, I haven't been working on it at all because it was a sabbatical after all. So when I did finally sit down to prepare a message for today, I wasn't quite sure how to do it. Because all joking aside, right now it feels a lot more like a Good Friday in our lives than an Easter Sunday. It feels strange to stand up and proclaim resurrection in a time that feels so much like the cross. With losses and struggles in our own life, with news of wars and ongoing violence and our neighbors continuing to be taken off the streets, life right now does not feel like resurrection. It feels like loss and grief and despair. And yet I also know most of you, if not all of you, are coming today with expectations of what you should hear on an Easter Sunday sermon. You've heard probably dozens of them in your life. Year after year, they proclaim that there is hope over despair, life over death, and peace over empire. And so, spoiler alert, we will get there. But as I prepared for today, now more than most years, I struggled to find something to say that didn't sound trite or flippant, something that felt true without looking away from the suffering of our time. So in reading the story of Jesus' crucifixion, I was reminded that Jesus himself was also wrongfully accused, wrongfully convicted, and executed by the state. He was a casualty of the empire and of religious leaders who were concerned about preserving power over preserving justice. And so coming to the resurrection story and reading Matthew's gospel, this year I realized as I came to it, I was inclined to read it as a prayer. Like the women who tentatively approached the tomb, not sure what they would find. The story became not just a reminder of God's triumph over death back then, but an invitation to live into and participate within the resurrection happening within my own life. And as I read, my prayer went something like this: God, not just for them back then, but may we see the same earth-shaking resurrection work in our lives and in our times as they did then. But the resurrection leaves us with our part to play in the story. Like the disciples of the first century, it is our turn to step into the story of resurrection. Each of us are asked if we will look for resurrection in the dead places, within our communities, within our hearts, within our country and the world. The question the gospel has for us today is, will you come and see? And will you go and tell? So I'm going to read our passage from Matthew, coming from chapter 28, 1 through 10. And it says, after the Sabbath, at the dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were as white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go and quickly tell the disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go, tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So there are several unique things about Matthew's gospel and the story of Jesus' resurrection. But first, I want you to just take a moment, maybe close your eyes and go back to how you imagined the women walking to the tomb. What did it look like? What did they look like? What were they wearing? Why do you think they were going? Because we've heard this story a lot of times, we might be tempted to merge all of these narratives into sort of one story in our minds. But if we're not careful in this story, we might accidentally put things there that are not. Because you'll notice Matthew's account do not have the women carrying spices to the tomb. In their journey in Matthew, they are not going to anoint his body for death. In fact, in the book of Matthew, back in chapter 26, a woman already came and anointed him for burial, in the middle of dinner, no less. And we're not even explicitly told that they are going to grieve his death. We are simply told they are going to look at the tomb. These women, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, likely the mother of James and Joseph, according to Matthew 27, were the same women who were at Jesus' feet when he died that Friday afternoon. And so now they returned to the place where his body was laid. They had heard directly and indirectly Jesus speak about his coming death and even that he would be raised. They had faithfully witnessed his crucifixion and burial, and yet Matthew does not tell us what they expected that morning. Perhaps they did remember his words. They may not have understood them, and perhaps they were hopeful. Perhaps they were simply drawn back by grief and by love, but we just know that they went, looking for something. And now Matthew, who I'm convinced is now a Southern Californian at heart, loves to talk about seismic activities in his gospel. In Matthew 8, the seas quake when the disciples tried to cross the waters. In chapter 27, when Jesus died, the earth shakes, rocks split, and tombs open. If you want to read about zombies in the Bible, that's the chapter to go to. So again here in Matthew 28, when the women arrive and the angel appears, the earth shakes again. It shakes so violently that even the Roman soldiers fall down like dead men. Matthew wants us to not miss this point. God's work of resurrection is not quiet, it is disruptive. It shakes the very foundations of the world. And we see that while the forces of empire lie on the ground like lifeless bodies, Jesus is declared alive. The women stand there fearful and yet joyful when an angel appears and the stone is rolled away, not to let Jesus out, but to allow the women to look in and see. And that's exactly what they're commanded to do. Before they are sent to tell everybody that Jesus is alive, the angel tells them, "Come and see the place where he lay." They're invited to look and to witness and to take in the reality what has happened with their own eyes. But I think this command carries even more weight than simply a verification that he's not there. They are told to look and see and to pay attention and to look at the place where death has claimed everything. Because the tomb is the place where violence did its very worst. An empire declared that their power was final. But the angel says, take another look. Where there was death, new life has sprung up. Where empire enacted cruelty, God has ushered in shalom. This paradigm-shifting reality is not meant to be glanced over quickly. It must be witnessed. And it was only after they'd taken it in that they were sent out and told to go quickly and to tell the disciples. They are sent to become witnesses not just to the resurrection, but to tell others that the lowest of lows has become the gateway to life. The tools and cruelty of empire have been turned into the very means of redemption. And it is then, when the women are already on their way, ready to share this news, that they meet Jesus, only after the tomb. Only after they have stared death in the face that they encounter the risen Messiah, which means their belief and their response didn't require certainty. It unfolded in the midst of their action in response to what their invitation was given, to the invitation that was given. In faith they looked, and along the way they encountered the resurrection that was promised. As I mentioned before, Matthew's gospel has felt like a prayer for me this year, because the tension between Good Friday and Easter Sunday feels especially heavy for us. And resurrection, if we are to preach this good news, must be powerful enough to overcome the worst that we see in this world. It must be powerful enough to take on the pains of our life and the injustices that we see and say that it will overcome. And so we must look and see where Jesus was laid, to peer into the darkness, to look head on into the places where our communities are in anguish, to see the ways that God's creation is groaning, to stop ignoring the pain, the betrayal, or disappointment that we carry within us. Those things that didn't resolve when we prayed for them to resolve, the relationships that didn't heal in the ways that we thought they would. To look at the versions of our life that we thought we would be living. And as we look, hear this invitation. Come and witness to it. Come and see what God can do. And then go and share, because resurrection is here. Today, I wonder which one of these invitations feels more difficult for you. To come and see, to look in the dark places, or to go and share without full certainty, with the hope that Jesus will meet us along the way. Across time, we have seen others take up this invitation, not just the Marys of Scripture, but groups of women across time have refused to look away at the dark places. Like the Mary, these women went to places of pain and absence, commanded by love to see and to share their stories. The mothers of Plaza de Mayo in Argentina began gathering during a brutal dictatorship in the 1970s. Week after week, they returned to this public square, demanding to know what had happened to children who had been disappeared during this time. They went like the Marys to a kind of tomb, not because they had answers, not because they were certain that they would receive justice, but to stand in the place where their children should be standing and insist that the world acknowledge the truth of what was occurring. They refused to look away from the community's grief and loss, and because they refused to let their children's disappearance be erased or denied, and through their public witness, they forced a nation and the world to confront the truth of the state of violence that was happening in Argentina at the time. And then there are the Madres Buscadoras of Mexico, who searched deserts and fields for the remains of their loved ones who had also been disappeared, risking their safety in the process. They did not go because it was safe or certain, but love refused to look away. Through their relentless searching and public testimony, they recovered remains, identified missing, and brought visibility to the crisis that many would prefer to remain hidden, pressuring authorities even to take action within Mexico of these violences that were occurring. Both cases, resurrection doesn't look like the reversal of death, but it's the truth rising that where silence once ruled, dignity is restored. Where people are erased, communities come around to bring accountability and honor the lives of the people who were lost. And all of this is because these women chose again and again to come and see the places where something precious had been taken and bear witness until life in some form broke through. And even now, today, in our own city, the godmothers of the disappeared gather every Tuesday outside the Federal Building in downtown Los Angeles. They pray and they sing and they bear witness. They insist that those inside the detention centers are more than statistics, more than people to be feared. They stand outside those walls declaring each one of those people is someone's child. And in doing so, they embody the angel's command to come and see where he was laid. Because before resurrection can be proclaimed, the reality of injustice and violence must first be acknowledged and named. Do you hear his invitation to join, echoing throughout time? The Marys go to see. The mothers go to witness. The madres go to search. The godmothers stand and testify. And while most of us will never stand in the plaza of Argentina or search the deserts of Mexico, we all still have places where we're asked to come and see, places we are invited to not look away from, in order that we might recognize where the hope of resurrection is possible. So I wonder, where are the places in your life that feel lifeless? What grief has felt too difficult to look head on? The angel's words sound simple, come and see, but they carry a profound invitation for us this Easter. They do not deny the reality of death or pain or grief or injustice. They do not soften them. They insist we confront them because they are not the end. Yes, the tomb is still there, the memory is still there, but it is no longer occupied. And that is the hope of resurrection. Not that suffering never existed, but that it does not get the final word. Matthew tells us that as the women leave the tomb, they encounter the risen Christ, not after everything is resolved, not after everything is understood, but in the midst of their response, when they have witnessed and they have begun to trust. So God speaks across time and across centuries and across cultures, saying, will you go to the places where death still speaks? Will you stand with those who refuse to stop searching? Will you risk seeing what is uncomfortable or unresolved and real? Because resurrection is not just something to proclaim, it's something we practice with our life. Showing up, witnessing, going and telling, speaking the truth about what has been and daring to believe that it will not be the last. So this Easter, I invite you to come to the tomb. Come with your questions, come with your fears and hope entangled, and then go. Go to the places that you are sent, into the plazas, into the deserts, into the sidewalks of downtown LA, into the streets of Pasadena, amongst your family and your neighbors, and look for the risen Christ where he will be found. See the place where he lay and discover even there that death does not get the final word. Amen.